It is 2026, and the dating landscape has become a digital minefield of curated identities and optimized facades. If you're feeling dating fatigue, you aren't alone. You're exhausted because you're playing a game where the rules are designed to hide the truth. We've all been there. You meet someone, the chemistry is electric. For the first 90 days, they are everything you've ever wanted. This is what I call the 3-month mask. In the modern era, anyone with a modicum of social intelligence can perform high value for 12 weeks. They can mirror your values, hide their triggers, and perform the role of the perfect partner until the oxytocin wears off and the mask finally slips. By then, you're invested. You're in love with a ghost, and the devaluation phase begins. But what if you could compress those 3 months of discovery into 10 minutes? What if you could force the mask to slip before you've even finished your first drink? Today, I'm introducing you to the Pre-Rejection Test. This isn't about being difficult or playing games. It is a psychological shortcut designed to make low-effort or toxic individuals feel so viscerally uncomfortable that they reject themselves and leave your life before you ever have to dump them. The thesis is simple. High-value people do not fear rejection. They use it as a surgical filter. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to stop being the magnet and start being the filter. Most dating advice is magnet advice. It teaches you how to be more attractive, how to be more mysterious, how to pull people in. The problem with being a powerful magnet is that you attract everything, including the scrap metal and the toxic waste. High-value individuals, those with high boundary resilience and a grounded sense of self, operate differently. They prioritize the filter. They understand a concept from the business world called the cost of acquisition. In dating, your cost of acquisition is the amount of emotional labor, time, and nervous system dysregulation you spend to find out who someone truly is. If it takes you 6 months to realize someone is a narcissist or emotionally unavailable, your cost is too high. You are bankrupting your soul on bad investments. When you date to be liked, you are in a defensive, performative crouch. You're checking your own behavior to ensure you don't scare them off. The pre-rejection test flips the script. You want to scare off the wrong people. You want to be too much for the person who is too little. By implementing these tests, you create cognitive dissonance in the mind of a manipulator. A manipulator needs a blank slate to project onto. When you present a firm, defined shape, they realize they can't mold you. Their ego gets bruised, their mask feels heavy, and they exit. This is a win. To execute this effectively, you need to understand the 3 psychological pillars that hold up the pre-rejection test. The first pillar is the vulnerability spike. Most first-date conversation is horizontal. It stays on the surface. Where are you from? What do you do? The vulnerability spike is a vertical move. You share a minor, calibrated, and resolved truth about yourself. For example, mentioning a boundary you recently learned to set, or a small personal failure you've moved past. You aren't trauma dumping. You are sharing a piece of your humanity to see their reaction. Does it create a moment of empathy, or do they respond with judgmental deflection? A low-value person will often mock the vulnerability or feel awkward and change the subject because they lack the emotional vocabulary to meet you in the deep end. The second pillar is the boundary push. This is the most diagnostic tool in your kit. You set a small, polite, but firm boundary early on. If they suggest a specific bar, you might say, "I actually find that place a bit too loud for conversation. I'd prefer we go to location X instead. Does that work for you?" It's a tiny request, but to a person with a high need for control, this is a threat. Watch their response. Do they accommodate with ease, or do they become passive-aggressive? Do they try to negotiate you out of your preference? This tests their control response. If they can't handle a change in venue, imagine how they'll handle your no 3 months from now. The third pillar is the value conflict question. We spend too much time trying to find common ground and not enough time finding conflict ground. You want to move past "what do you do for work" and ask, what is a hill you are willing to die on? This forces them to reveal their internal moral compass. If their only hill is something superficial, or if they claim they don't really care about anything, you are looking at a person with a hollow core. Someone who will likely mirror you rather than partner with you. Let's get tactical with 5 specific questions designed to trigger the pre-rejection response. Question 1 is the growth question. When was the last time you realized you were the villain in someone else's story? The hidden intent here is testing for accountability and the ability to self-reflect. A red flag response sounds like, "I've never really been the bad guy. I'm usually the one who gets screwed over." This indicates a victim complex. A high-value person knows they've made mistakes and can articulate the lesson learned. Question 2 is the no test. This isn't a question, but a reaction. If they offer to buy you another drink or suggest an activity you aren't fond of, say, "No thank you, I'm actually at my limit." The hidden intent is testing for entitlement. A red flag response is any variation of, "Oh, come on, just one more," or "You're being boring." Any attempt to push past a no is a massive indicator of future consent and boundary issues. Question 3 is the social shadow question. Who is the most difficult person in your life right now, and how are you handling them? You want to see how they speak about people who are currently causing them stress, especially people who can do nothing for them. A red flag is scorched earth rhetoric. If they describe everyone they disagree with as crazy or a loser, realize that you will eventually be on that list when you inevitably disagree with them. Question 4 is the timeline question. What is something you are intentionally waiting for right now? This tests for future faking versus reality. If they can't name anything they are working toward or waiting for, they are likely impulsive or living in a fantasy. Conversely, if they start describing a massive, unrealistic future with you after 10 minutes, they are failing the test by trying to hook you with dopamine rather than substance. Question 5 is the contrarian question. What's a commonly held belief that you completely disagree with? This tests for independent thought and the courage to be disliked. A red flag response is, "I don't know, I'm pretty chill. I usually just go with the flow." Translation, I am a people pleaser who will tell you what you want to hear until I resent you for it. When you run these tests, you will see one of 3 reactions. You must be prepared to decode them in real time. First, there is the runner. This is the person who feels the pressure of your depth and realizes they cannot manipulate or low-effort their way into your life. They will suddenly become distant or find a reason to leave. Let them go. They are rejecting themselves. They've realized you require maintenance of the truth. Second, there is the mirror. This is the low-value person who tries to fake the answers. They will pause, look for what you want to hear, and then parrot it back. Spot the lag in their response. If their answer feels like a script rather than a conviction, they are failing. Finally, there is the match. A high-value response is grounded. They won't be intimidated. They might even smile and say, "That's a heavy question for a first date, but I like it." They will answer with honesty, even if their answer is unpopular. They respect the filter because they use one too. Why go through this? Why not just relax and have fun? Because your nervous system is precious. When you use clear coding, meaning you are upfront about your depth and your boundaries, You save yourself from ghostlighting. That's the modern phenomenon where you're ghosted after months of gaslighting. By being too much in the first 10 minutes, you are actually being just right for the person who isn't intimidated by your light. You are protecting your cortisol levels. You are refusing to enter the anxious avoidant trap. True self-love isn't a bubble bath. It's a rigorous vetting process. It's saying, I value my future self enough to have an uncomfortable conversation today. Most people enter a date with a subconscious prayer. Please like me. This prayer is a scent that toxic people can smell from a mile away. It tells them that you are willing to compromise your boundaries for the sake of validation. When you adopt the pre-rejection mindset, your internal prayer changes to, show me who you are so I can decide if you belong in my world. This shift in energy is palpable. It changes your posture, your tone, and the way you hold eye contact. High-value people are drawn to this energy because it signals safety. Toxic people are repelled by it because it signals work. We have to address the fear that often stops people from using these tests, the fear of ending up alone. There is a psychological fallacy that a full calendar of mediocre dates is better than an empty calendar of high potential. But the opposite is true. Every hour you spend with a 3-month mask is an hour you are unavailable for a genuine connection. You are essentially cluttering your emotional house with furniture you know you're going to throw out. The pre-rejection test is emotional minimalism. It's about clearing the space so that when the right person walks in, you aren't too exhausted to see them. Think about the traditional dating timeline. Month 1 is the performance, month 2 is the integration of lives, month 3 is when the first major conflict usually happens. If you wait until month 3 to see how someone handles a boundary or a value conflict, you have already integrated them into your routine. You've met their friends, maybe you've shared your bed. The psychological cost of extraction at month 3 is 100 times higher than it is at minute 10 of a first date. We are talking about preventing trauma before it has the chance to take root. This is the difference between a high-value strategist and a hopeful romantic. The strategist knows that romance is the reward for successful vetting, not the tool for it. The final secret to the pre-rejection test is this: you have to be willing to be rejected. If you go into a date hoping they like you, the test will fail. You will soften your questions, you'll laugh at jokes that aren't funny, and you'll let the mask stay on. You have to walk in with the mindset that your time is a limited resource. Stop asking, will they choose me? And start asking, are they worthy of the space I've cleared in my life? A 10-minute investment in transparency today will save you 10 years of heartbreak later. Don't be afraid to be the filter. The right person won't just pass the test. They'll be relieved you're taking it. Because high-value people are also tired of the masks. They are also looking for someone brave enough to cut through the noise. When two filters meet, that's when the real chemistry begins. Not the chemical spike of a trauma bond, but the slow, steady heat of two people who actually know who they are sitting across from. Stay grounded. Stay high value. Honor your time, and the world will start honoring it too.